All right, you thinking about buying a sawmill, portable band sawmill, or any kind of mill. They make several different kinds, but mostly what you see is like what I got here behind me. We've been running this thing for about 4 years, I think, 3.5 years, and a lot of people are talking about going out and buying a sawmill because lumber prices are going up and they're high, and they feel like they'd be better off just buying a sawmill and that'd be the end of it. If they need a board, they'll just go out there and cut it. Well, if you're one of those people thinking about buying a sawmill, give me just a minute and I'll tell you kind of the ins and outs of what we've found over the past couple of years, and you'll be able to decide if a sawmill is something that you need or if it's something that you just want. Some people say that have bought sawmills before, they're like, well, a sawmill's kind of like a Jeep. You want one because you ain't got it, and then when you get one, you don't never really ride around in it, and you end up selling it. So maybe here over the next few minutes, I'll be able to help you seal the deal to tell if a sawmill is right for you or not. Chances are, if you're seeing this video, you've already been doing a little bit of research, and you already know that band sawmills are expensive. It don't matter if you get the littlest little Harbor Freight, little tiniest little sawmill, it's still gonna run you a couple of $1,000s all the way to, what we've got here. A lot of folks don't realize they come over and want to play on the sawmill. Well, this is near about a $30,000 mill, and it's not something to play on. And so that's one thing I want to talk about, the cost to you. You got to do your research and find out what mill is right for you, what size mill you're going to need for the size logs you're going to be cutting, how long of a bed that it's got on it. I know some people like Wood-Mizer and stuff like that. They sell bed extensions where you can cut longer logs or what have you. But the upfront cost of a sawmill is a lot. Whether you get a big Wood-Mizer or like Timber King here, Norwood, any of them, all the way down to the little Chinese one from Harbor Freight, it's still a pretty good cost up front, and you got to weigh your options. I know lumber's expensive, but if you're just building a shed or trying to build a dog house or something like that, you're probably gonna be better off just going to your box store and getting some lumber and just fuss about it on the way home and get over it. Because for the price of a sawmill, just the initial upfront cost of a sawmill, you can buy a truckload of lumber. And if you're not in the business, if you're not steady building stuff and trying to build an empire or serve the community, you probably just need to go to Home Depot or Lowe's or whatever y'all got. I know up north they got different big box stores that we ain't got down here, but you're probably better off just fussing about it on the way home, and don't worry about this right here behind me. It ain't for everybody. And then you decide, okay, I really need a sawmill because I'm gonna be cutting. I got some property, I'm gonna be cutting some trees. I got some people I cut trees from. Okay, well, you buy the sawmill. You just cut your left arm off and your foot, and you give it to this company, and they give you a sawmill. All right, now you got it home. That's the initial cost, but you also have running costs. Here we got of course, fuel, and you have an engine up there. We got a 25 or 7 horsepower Kohler, I think, what's on this mill, and that thing takes air filters, oil filters, change oil. It takes upkeep. And if it's portable, like this one is, you just inherited 2 brand new tires that you're going to have to keep up with. They ain't going to be brand new forever. And you also inherited some wheel bearings that can lock up, especially when you're running your blade coolant and your axles stay wet all the time. And down here in the south, rust starts happening immediately, and you spend your whole life fighting the elements down here. So that's something to think about. You got an engine that you got to change the oil in, air filters, oil filters. You gotta keep all this stuff up. And of course, if it's portable, you got tires, you got wheel bearings, you know the deal. Okay, so that's just some maintenance that you're gonna look forward to, in the future. It's not, you ain't done paying for it when you buy it. And then you say, well, I can handle that. That ain't too bad. Now we get it home. Okay, we get the sawmill home. We get it here. We park it out in the pasture, and we're gonna cut us a log up. Well, we get a log, and then we get another log, and we start learning. We were running some boards. We just murdering these trees, trying to find out what to do the right way. And all of a sudden we go to cutting, and then it starts doing this. When it goes through the tree, it'll dive down and come back up. And we say, man, well, maybe we're going too fast. So we slow way down, and then it's putting nicks in the board, and then it'll dive. Well, that's a dull blade. And that's my next point. Keeping sharp blades is expensive. Whether you take the blades that come with the sawmill, they probably, I don't know, if you buy a good mill, Timber King did us right. They sent us a lot of blades when we come home with the mill. They sent a whole lot of blades with us because they've been in the business, and they knew the old boys come up from South Mississippi. They fixing to tear some stuff up. So they sent us a lot of blades. Anyway, what I'm getting at is now you got a dull blade. Now you take that blade off, go put it in the shed. You put a new blade on. Now we back to cutting. Well, in just a little while, you ain't gonna have no more blades, and you're gonna have to get them sharp. Whether you send them off, if you send it off, it's still $10 or $15 times shipping and everything. $10 to $15 per blade to get them sharpened and sent back. Now, you mess around and dull a dozen blades, you got to send them off, and that's a pretty good expense, because at first you're gonna be cutting old junk, and you're gonna run into something and really dull it and bend some teeth and probably ruin the blade. If you ruin the blade, that's $30 right there. So blades are what make the mill run, and it's also one of the highest running costs. It's expensive for common folks to keep good sharp blades on hand, unless you buy a sharpener and you sharpen them at home. You sharpen your own blades. And if you do get yourself a sharpener, or you price a blade sharpener, you're fixing to learn something. You're fixing to spend a lot of money. A good, decent sharpener and setter is going to run you a couple of $1,000, $2,500, $3,000, something like that. That'll get you a really good blade sharpener and tooth setter, because these teeth on these saw blades, they're, one of them straight, and then one will be angled that way, and one will be angled that way, and the next one will be straight. That's to, clean the cut out where you can make a good pass. The teeth have to be set, so you got to have a setter and you got to have a sharpener. That's a big expense, and that's just to keep keep blades sharp. Okay, now we got that out of the way. You're going to now owe your other arm to somebody else, arm and a leg for all that, and now we got to think of something else. You just spent all this money. You have invested a lot into this sawmill, and it's sitting out there in the field, in the side of the corner of the yard, something like that, just getting rained on. We don't have snow, but if you're anywhere north of us, you probably get snow every year. You don't want your mill, your investment, to just sit out in the weather. So now we got to build a building over the top, and you got to have a pretty good sized building with your poles spaced way apart where you can get in and out of here with your logs. And so that's something else to think about. You really wouldn't be wise to just buy a sawmill, spend all that money, and leave it sitting out in the yard and getting rained on, everything rust up, and it's just, that would that would be terrible. That bothers me. Good stuff sitting out in the weather. So now you got to build a big pole barn to put the sawmill under. Or unless you already got one, we didn't have one. We had to build all this after the fact. But anyway, don't let your stuff sit out in the rain. That's another expense. Okay, now we got a sawmill. We got our blade sharpening thing figured out. And we got it under a shed. Now, we need to cut some trees. We need to sure enough cut some trees where we can start making a little bit of money back on our investment. Well, now we got to have a tractor. If you buy a sawmill, you probably already got a tractor. But you have to have a tractor. Or, I mean, you could do it, I guess, with a team of horses. But you've got to drag these logs. And if you ain't never fooled with no log, they heavy. It's ridiculous how heavy they are. So you got to have a tractor. You got to have some hydraulic help to at least get the tree to the mill and roll it up on there. You can roll small logs around with a cant hook, but I'm sitting on about a 30-inch pine log right now talking to y'all, and you could have a 6-foot cant hook, and you ain't near about gonna roll this log up on there. So something else to think about: logs are heavy, and your lumber is heavy. When you saw green lumber, that stuff's heavy. So it's physically taxing, even with a tractor. It's really hard. Sawmilling works really hard, even by yourself. Or by yourself, it's really hard, even with a tractor. So that's something else to think about. A four-wheeler ain't gonna do it. Four-wheeler, I mean, you're not gonna drag a 12-foot pine log down here, 18 inches, 20 inches around. You about ain't gonna drag that with a four-wheeler. So anyway, something else to think about. You got to be able to move these logs. Okay, we got a sawmill, we got a blade sharpener, we got a tractor, we got a shed built over our stuff. Now what? We ready to go in business? Kinda. You can do a lot with that, but you really, really have to have something set up for when you cut your lumber, whether you cut it for you or whether you cut it to sell one day. You've got to be able to store this lumber somewhere. You see where I'm going? You're going to need another shed. You're going to need another barn, some kind of pole barn. You're going to need a something. If nothing else, you're going to have to stack it off the ground out in the weather and just build you you just lay a couple rafters on the ground and lay it and kind of build a roof type of thing where you can pick it up with a tractor and set it on top of a stack of lumber and just strap it down. That'll work. That'll get you by. But you can't saw lumber and just pile it up out in the yard somewhere. Not down here. I don't know how it is up north. The weather's different. But down here, extreme heat, extreme humidity. We run around short sleeve shirts 9.5 months out of the year. So it's hot. There's all kinds of bugs, insects. None of them hardly ever die. You get bit by mosquitoes year round down here. And so all the termites and stuff like that is terrible down here. You got to keep your stuff under a shed. You got to keep it out of the weather and away from the elements, off the ground, out of the rain, out of direct sunlight if you can help it. So something else to think about. You need somewhere to store all this lumber that you're fixing to, saw up. And one more thing I want to talk about before we get off here. You fixing to make a lot of friends. There's going to be people that you ain't never heard of just come up and they're going to be so nice. You're going to have lots of friends. It's like having a good truck and a trailer. They're going to be calling you and they're going to send you a picture. They're going to text you and say, they'll send you a picture of a tree and say, how many boards will that make? I don't know. If I bring you this tree, could I build my shed? I don't know. And then it's always how many boards does that make? How much is it gonna cost? And can you hold it for me? Can you stack it up? Can you hold it for me? And you gonna get, there's people, it's ridiculous. If you end up with a mill, you're gonna see. But be ready for that. There's people out there that don't have any logic. They ain't no logical thinking. They just, I don't know how to explain it. But you're gonna find them. You get a sawmill, you're gonna find out. But anyway, I'm gonna get off here. Thank y'all for watching. If you made it to the end, please subscribe. Helps me out a lot. Click the like button and click the bell. Thank y'all. Have a good one.